All right, so we are going to pick up where we left off last class, but I wanted to explain some of the important things because we are moving into a part where you could make some potential errors. So I just want to make sure that you first understand what we just did and then also understand what we're moving into for our next step. So to recap what we were working on last time, you guys were filling in the white with just your white charcoal pencil, and you should have all of your outlines transferred from your outline on your transfer page. So make sure that you don't take these off yet. These do not come off of your final project until the very last day, until the day you turn it in. So we've got these lines all transferred, and we've been working on going through and adding the white with just the white charcoal pencil and your Q-tip. So what I want you to be thinking about as you're working on this is double checking, first of all, what value matches our paper the best, which in my mind, I think it's a 6. So if you look at like the middle of each of these circles, like the hole punches, the 6 kind of disappears, whereas like the 7, it's like, oof, there's a big circle. And the 5, it's like, oof, there's a big circle. But this one, if you kind of blur your eyes, I know that the printout is slightly different colored, but that one blends in my mind the best. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to look on my actual reference photo, and I highly recommend having these folded and as close to what you're drawing as possible. So now what I'm going to do next is I'm going to use this value finder to go through and say, all right, what is lighter than a 6? And everything that's lighter than a 6, I have to use my white charcoal pencil to make. So I'm checking my values right now, and I am looking for anything that is 6 or less. So all of these values, like all of these spaces, like this is a 2. So I probably still need to like continue building my lighter values. So checking this and saying, all right, well, the forehead is about a 2. So I probably do need to bring in a little bit more here. So what I can do is just like continuously build this up. And so I'm just like continuously checking and adjusting and then adding more when necessary. And then once you've added it, you have to complete that final step of blending. And something you should know about blending with a Q-tip is that it does occasionally steal. And that is why my values on my forehead turned out darker than what I meant, was because when you blend, it steals that value. So now see how it matches with the 2, and then this is a 2 over here as well. So I'm just looking for these areas where it changes. Now I'm gonna show you a really important part right now. I want to remind you of the really terrible error that you might make when you do this mistake. If you let your white and your black charcoal overlap, so let me show you this again. If I have my black charcoal and it is right here, and then I come in with my white and allow them to actually mix together, you get this really awful blue color of gray that doesn't match our paper. So what we're doing, the problem that we want to avoid is this, that's no good. So what we need to do instead is to fade out to the color of our paper. So I'm just using my blending stump to fade that out so that it blends really smoothly into this light gray of our paper tone. And then we're bringing in our white colored pencil, and we want to fade this out with our Q-tip before it reaches that center. And so see how there's this little bit of a gap between them? That is incredibly important because then it allows these colors to look like they have a smoother transition between them on this paper compared to this. So I want you to make sure that as you're moving forward with this next step, that you have gray paper between your white values and your black values. So what we're going to do next is check on these areas where it's starting to fade. So you can see that it's like starting to get darker. So right around here on this side of my forehead, it is the color of the paper. So I'm just going to kind of leave it that color. And then as it gets darker over here, I'm going to start bringing in some of my black. So I've added the majority of my white. I've checked it already. Now, something to consider is that if you are right-handed, you don't want to be smudging everything that you've done. So I was just about to start adding values over here, but I had a moment where I was like, oh no, wait, I don't want to smudge that as I'm working on the rest of it. So I'm looking for areas on the left-hand side that I can start adding into so that I'm not like smudging everything that I've worked really hard on. So I'm going to show you a detailed close-up version of this eye now. So we are going to start on the eye, and I'm looking very closely at what I actually have in my reference photo. So one thing that kids get confused on quite often is that the white of the eye should be pure white, when really it's just like this tiny little smidge of white that's down at the bottom. So I just have a tiny little bit of white coming in. Now I'm going to outline this lash, or actually I'm going to bring in some of the white on this lid first. I realized I don't have that. So I've got just a little bit of white that I need to bring in. I've got like this highlight on the eyelid and then a highlight like on the back space behind. Now I'm going to bring in this black, and I'm adding just a very skinny little line for this little eyelid line. Then I'm going to use my blending stump to fill in my eyebrow with medium tone. Remember, that's what we did for our practice. So I'm filling in the eyebrow with medium tone, and then I'm going to take my black charcoal pencil, and I'm really paying attention to the direction that I see, and I think I might have gone a little bit dark also. So if you ever do go dark, you can just always just lighten it up very easily with an eraser. So I just lighten that up just a tad bit, and now I'm going to come in and add individual lines with a crispy part of my charcoal pencil. So I'm like looking at specific lines. I've got this as close to my image as I can get it, and I'm just trying to like add in specific hairy looking little lines for the eyebrow. Now for the eye, I'm gonna do this full eye right now, and I'm gonna show you how. So I want you to have your face up towards the board, full attention up here. So I'm gonna just walk you through this very quickly. We are going to start by adding the black pupil right in the middle. Typically the iris has more of a shadow near the top of the eyelid edge. And then I'm just going to leave a little bit of space for that highlight right here where it starts to have some color building. So we've got a dark outline, which is why I'm gonna like bring this line down and leave just like that little light section right there. And then I'm gonna bring in just a little bit of value surrounding this, and I'm starting out lighter than I think I'm going to want later on, just because we can always get darker, but it's much harder to turn it lighter after you make a mistake and go too dark. So I'm just like filling in the black here, and then we're going to blend it with our blending stump, and I'm going to just start like building in these shadows here along the lash line. We've got a pretty decent amount of dark on this side of the eye, so we want to like start bringing in some of those darker values. We've got these darker values like along the inside line of the eyebrow here. So I'm just bringing in some of these like medium tones. So you can see it's all about like the process and building these values, because these first few passes are pretty difficult to make it look like what you're going for. But then we start to like build in some of these little details like this highlight that we see in the eye. We'll build in a little bit more of this black here. So we're really just starting to slowly build in some of these black details, and we're making sure that we're not allowing the black and the white to overlap too much, because we want to have that nice gray transition of the paper between them. So you're just slowly starting to build up these values, just very, very light little marks at a time, and then we'll just continue to build our black from there. So this is the next step, is just working on adding in the black, and using your blending stump is going to be very valuable. So like going through and like finding these values and just like slowly starting to build up some of these medium tones to just like use those softer values to try to help you form your face is going to be really, really helpful. So as you guys are working though, if you have, first of all, an outline showing you, because remember I asked you guys to add your little outlines of where your values changed. So you have to go in and erase those outlines, and then you also want to make sure that like between your white and your black that you have some of your paper showing. So if you do have them start to overlap, bring your eraser in, and you can just like slowly start to take away from the space in between the white and black to show that gray paper between them. Does that make sense? So that is the next step. After you've added all of your white, you're coming in with black and slowly building up those details, making sure that they are not overlapping with the white charcoal pencil. Okay? So, any questions? You guys feeling good? All right, cool. So I'm excited to see what you guys do with this. If we have anyone that reaches the end of the black charcoal for their picture, you most likely still have details to add. But if at that point you're like, oh, I don't know, come and check it with me. And if I do have 2 people that are ready for the colored pencil step, I'll show you guys that next. All right, cool. That's all I've got for you guys. So what you'll need today will be your charcoal blocks, your project folders, and that should be it. All right. You've got the rest of class to work on shading and picking up where you left off. Thank you guys. Ready, go.